Chapter 1281. What's an eldest to do? Well, Morelia has gone back to the Legion. Brendan has said they won't be launching any more tests for the time being, and the subjugation of the lower tunnels is almost done. So, I find myself kind of rudderless and without purpose for the time being. Which means, of course, there's nothing to stop me from tickling the grubs. Muahahaha, my precious stress relief, it's been so long. Now that Mother is present in the fourth, there's an active queen down here, which means grubs. Filled with joy, I race upward from the forward base, which has been expanding by the hour, and head into the shortcut network the colony is still in the process of constructing. It's always a bit of a risky business building these sorts of extended highways in the dungeon. Sure, it allows us to travel much more quickly from the nest to the entrance of the fifth, but the reverse is also true. When the next wave occurs, the monsters of the fifth and their toxic mana will have a direct road straight up to the base of the nest. Naturally, the colony is aware of this, which means a copious number of defensive emplacements, walls and forts are also under construction, each of which only face the downward slope. This network of direct tunnels is going to be the main focus of all the fighting in the next wave, and it's clear the carvers don't intend to employ half measures. There's a lot of ants moving down the shortcut, in addition to the huge number of workers busily building away. Clearly, the troops are starting to move down to the staging ground. Hopefully soon, the invasion will be ready and I can start taking on the fifth properly. Those stupid slugs are going to have no idea what hit them. Gway. With joy in my heart, I burst into the inner chambers, ready to engage in a wonderful bout of tickling. Where are those grubs? What are you doing here, child? A deep and warm voice calls to me. Going to play with the grubs. I declare happily. Thwack. Yeouch. I was so preoccupied with my opportunity to indulge myself in harmless games with the grubs, I didn't even realize it was Mother talking to me. Hello there, Mother. How are you doing? It's still weird to realize that I'm larger than her now. For most of my ant life, she's towered over me. I can still remember the first time I saw her, when I was, what? Tier 2. She was huge, looming over all of the ants in the colony. The past, present and future of the family, all bound up in a single carapace. Despite being larger than her, the queen is still an intimidating presence. There's sharpness to her gaze that seems to pierce straight through my exoskeleton, no matter how many layers of diamond I have. I'm well, child, I am very busy, as all members of the family are. How is it that you have time to play with the brood? Surely, there are many tasks that you could perform. Well, probably. The lower tunnels aren't completely clear of monsters, how could they be? It's not like we're removing the dungeon veins from that area, so there's a constant stream of new spawns. Not to mention, every time we find a local, high-tier monster who's carved out a little territory for themselves over the years and take them out, other monsters start to move into the area, looking for new turf. These skirmishes have played out hundreds of times down below and will go on for a while longer yet. I could also help with the organization of the troops heading down to the staging grounds. I'm not all that good at logistics, to put it mildly, but I'm aware enough to say that just having me around would help lift the spirits of the troops. After all, I'm the oldest and strongest, who doesn't want their big reliable older sis brother? Reliable older brother around. Sheesh. You're right, Mother, I admit with a heavy sigh, slumping with defeat. There are plenty of things I could be doing right now. I suppose I'll head out and get back to it. My mother watches me gather myself slowly with an amused glint in her eye. You really are the most troublesome of all my children. Whether you are coming or going, there is always some difficulty. I'm not exactly sure what to say to that. She already thwacked me, do I need a scolding as well? As you say, Mother. I can only agree with her in the hopes of avoiding more sharp thwacks of the antennae. As if sensing my somewhat cowardly mentality, the queen's antenna twitches once more, but she doesn't lash out. There is nothing wrong with playing with the grubs, child, she tells me warmly. I do so at times myself. I only ask that you make sure to balance the needs of the colony against your own. That is an odd thing for Mother to say. I mean, she's an ant. Not just any ant, she's as ant as it gets. What does she mean, balance the needs of the colony against my own? The needs of the colony are the needs of the individual, to just about everyone in this family, and especially to her. I turn to look at her directly, but I can't get a sense of what she's thinking. Does she see me differently from the others for some reason? Does she know that I wasn't always an ant? Does it matter, considering she gave me permission to tickle the grubs? I'll have you know, Mother, that it has been ages since I entertained the brood. I've been busy all over the place, doing all sorts of stuff for the family. That is good, she says, and reaches out to pat me on the carapace encouragingly. I've even been taking part in the test assaults on the 5th stratum. I boast. Compliments from Mother are rare, it doesn't hurt to fish for a few more. She hesitates, confused. What assaults on the 5th stratum? She asks, puzzled. At this moment, I realize just how badly I messed up. She's not supposed to know about those. She's not supposed to know anything about it at all. Oh, you know, just a few exploratory missions to see what's going on down there. Test out the waters, sort of thing. If she were capable of narrowing her eyes, that's exactly what she would be doing right now. I don't like it when my children keep secrets from me. What secrets? That's a perfectly reasonable thing for you to say, of course. I mean, there's so much going on in the colony at any given time, how could you possibly know about all of it? Nobody knows about all of it. Except maybe me. The Queen remains still, as if processing what I said, so I take the opportunity to just slide a little toward the brood chamber. Then slide a little more. I think I got away with that. Smooth. Chapter 1282. Tickle time is over. After my brilliant ruse with the Queen, Tiny, Chrysalis, Nvidia and I managed to sneak into the brood chamber and spend some quality time entertaining the grubs. Ah, it soothes my soul to see the little things rolling around, wiggling with excitement, trying to escape my tickling antennae. The biggest ones, pumped full of biomass and almost ready to spin their cocoons, are the most fun to tease. So bloated they can barely move themselves, Tiny and I take turns rolling them back and forth while they chitter their little mandibles happily. Nvidia hasn't really done this much before, but even he seems to have a good time, fluttering about the brood chamber on his little wings and landing on the grubs with his tiny hands. When they try to rear up and nibble on him, he deftly flies to the next, leaving them chasing after him. Chrysalis is, of course, a favorite with the grubs. Able to tickle, roll and spin hundreds of young at the same time, she has to be careful not to overstimulate the little things. All of this is, of course, watched over by the ever-present brood tenders, who clack their mandibles happily and spread their warm, calming pheromones through the chamber, bringing a sense of peace and comfort to all of us. Ah, this really is a slice of heaven, it must be. Alas, all good things must come to an end. When all the little grubs are tickled out and ready to nap, it's time for us to move on. I say goodbye to the tenders, who shoo us out before turning back to tuck their charges in, and the gang and I find ourselves out in the tunnels, with no immediate purpose. I do, however, feel greatly rejuvenated. A weight has been lifted from me, my spirit has been cleansed and my mind is refreshed. It's just impossible to get bogged down and worried about all the things going on in Pengara while surrounded by such innocent little creatures. What are we going to do now, Master? Chrysalis asks, latching onto my carapace once more. Well, it's a valid question. Realistically, it's time to go and spend some skill points and biomass. I haven't mutated in ages, and I've gone well beyond the targets Granon set for me regarding the fusions he wanted me to take. One of the advantages of so many minds is the ability to grind really hard, and I've been in combat an awful lot lately. There's no better time or place to get levels than a good fight, and to be honest, I probably should have done less grinding and more poison mana cleansing while I was down there, but hey, I'll take the gains. Biomass isn't quite as stocked as I would have liked, considering there's basically nothing to eat down in the 5th. I might have to lean on the colony a little and ask them to feed me. They'll do it happily, but I try not to ask if I don't absolutely have to. With the invasion of the 5th coming up, I feel like it's probably a good time to ask for some help to get as strong as I possibly can, which means maxing out my mutations. However, before I can get to that, there's something going on in the vestibule. The number of ants in the 4th is constantly swelling as more and more join us through the gate. Our territory in the 3rd has reached its limit for the time being, as the deeper we go through the layers of that burning wasteland, the fewer unclaimed pillars we find. That means the numbers available to shore up our position here are rapidly growing, so I'm used to a steady increase in the flow of wool through the vestibule. What I'm not used to is what I'm sensing now. What the heck are all these people doing in here? There's something I want us to go and look at, Chrysalis, if that's all right with you. So saying, I lead the gang toward the gate and arrive to find, of all things, humans, Golgari, folk, the odd Karmado, marching through in neat ranks and being directed further into the nest by ant attendants. To my surprise, Solent is present, going over slates filled with numbers and conversing with other generals. I skitter over and loom over their conversation, causing them to cut off short. Solent, what am I seeing here? I ask. Technically, I could find out through the vestibule, but it's much more polite to ask, right? I can't be wandering around just knowing things all the time. Our allies are arriving to help with conquering the fifth, eldest, she says calmly, as if it's obvious. You want to send these people down into the fifth? I say, aghast. They'll be food for the slugs down there. Do they even know what they're getting into? Of course they do, they're all volunteers, she replies. All of them, all of these people, there's thousands and thousands of them. Where the heck have they all come from? Wait, are those demons I'm seeing? What is happening? We've neglected these people for too long, and the benefits of fighting alongside them and the human ant priests are too strong to be ignored, Solent states, as if it's all perfectly obvious. We are taking on a challenge so great that I refuse to leave any possible advantage behind. Every ounce of our strength is going to be leveraged for this task. But where are they all coming from? Since when has the colony been able to muster up a fighting force like this? I've fought alongside the refugees from Renewal many times, but there's only so many of those allied cities that have fallen under the colony's influence, for the most part. Others have come to join us after hearing about our mission, still others have been sent from friendly parties. The folk have sent several thousand of their people, as have the Brathians. The Bruinchi are sending several grove keepers to help spread the mother tree's roots in the captured territory. Some demons, mostly those with conquering or exploration-based obsessions, have leapt at the opportunity to come. Even the Magpie sent a few people. It will be difficult to merge them into our existing battalions, but the process has already begun. There's nothing we can't account for with proper preparation and planning. Holy moly, when I put Solent in charge, I knew she'd pull out all the stops and do things no other ant general was willing to do, but even I didn't think she'd go this far. Chapter 1283, Power Up. Well, if everyone else is winding up to go the distance, how can I do any less? Solent, I know you're busy, but can you get a message out? I want some hunting parties to rustle up some biomass for me and the gang. It's time for us to get mutating. She nods slowly. That would be wise. We need all four of you at your best. It may not be necessary for you to wait for hunts, there is a short-term biomass storage kept on hand for the Queen, though she seldom uses it. I dare say it's fully stocked even now. It's a good lead, so I thank the little general and head back into the nest. It doesn't take us long to track down the storage, and sure enough, it's packed full of food, enough to make Tiny's eyes light up. As evolved as we are, it's not easy to rack up the biomass now. We really need high-tier food, and thankfully, that is exactly what the colony has been providing to this storehouse. Only the best for Mother, naturally. Since she generally likes to hunt for her own sustenance, most of this is just sitting about until the ants stocking it give up, pass out the food, then go hunt for another batch. There's a few soldiers waiting outside the storage when we arrive, and it isn't all that difficult to persuade them to let us eat. I certainly don't want to snatch food from Mother's jaws, but that's not what is happening here. No matter how well they stock this pantry, she isn't coming. So the four of us settle in and get to chomping as the ants rush out to hunt down more food for us. Remember, you need to mutate as much as you possibly can, and spend any skill points you've got stocked up if you can find something that looks worthwhile. This conflict is going to be hard, and we need to push ourselves as far as we can. However, I don't want you to take a bunch of mutations that are only applicable in the fifth. That will only weaken you in the long run. Get me? Yes. Yes, Master. Thumbs up. You could say something, Tiny. Hand gestures aren't the only form of communication. Thumbs up. All right there, wise guy. Settle down, you don't want to hurt yourself. Sheesh. Making him more intelligent is only making him more cheeky. That doesn't mean I'll stop. I'd rather him cheeky and alive than stupid and dead. With four massive monsters such as us tucking into the grub, we quickly start making a huge dent in it, but surprisingly quickly hunting parties arrive with more food for us, dumping it into the mix while we keep on chomping. As we eat, I multitask and start hitting up my menus. I've gained a reasonable chunk of levels thanks to all the fighting, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to what I need for my next evolution. Level 52. I can accept that. It's respectable. I've little doubt the experience will start raining down once we get into the fifth proper. Taking a look at my skill levels, I can see that I've managed to reach the required ranks for both fusions that Granon had me working toward. So I might as well go ahead and purchase them. The first one was a combination of coordination, balance, six-legged defensive footwork, predictive thinking and grace, all at rank 4. It hasn't been easy, but I got there in the end. A 5-skill fusion is always going to be a juicy one, and I was hoping to push these to rank 5 for an even more succulent fusion, but I just don't have the time. Fusing them together costs me a whopping 16 skill points, but as a result, I'm given a brand new skill, Precognitive Agile Defense at rank 4. Doing anything with skills, particularly at this level, makes my brain feel like it's been rinsed with warm water. Things feel liquid inside my head. It's not unpleasant, but I'm glad when it's all done. I'll have to get into a proper fight to test the effects of the skill, and get a few more ranks in it as well, but according to Granin, it's going to make me more agile, more balanced, faster on my feet, and more responsive to my existing precognitive abilities. All in all, a defensive boost that will help keep me one step ahead of the game. For the second fusion, I need to merge concentration, mana weave and divergent thinking together with meditation. Now this is a big one, taking some fundamental mana handling skills, along with meditation, and sticking them all together to form divergent focus. This new skill should, according to Granin, apply the benefits of meditation and concentration to each of my mind constructs, instead of only to the brains handling them, multiplying the effect. In addition, it'll improve the ability of each of them to weave mana. In order to properly utilize my plan to manipulate mana within my enemies, Granin believed this would be a necessary step. The fusion takes place at rank 4, but, I managed to get them all to rank 5. Muahahaha, I'm too good, too darn good, Granin. I mean, it's not like it's hard to grind divergent thinking, you just have one brain think about more than one thing at a time. As if I've never done that before. This one is going to cost me a whopping 20 skill points, but I gladly spend it and eagerly wait to see the results. Manifold High Focus, EH. Sounds good. I'll need to test it to work out what it is, get some levels and ranks, but I'm hopeful it'll prove to be good. Now, I need to get to mutating. Chapter 1284. Getting into gear. Note: going to retcon the vestibule mutations, specifically the ones that allow him to turn will into physical strength, since the altar allows him to do that, and he's basically never used it. It's been a long time since I went on a mutating spree, and if the food keeps coming, there's going to be a lot that I can do. Without hesitation, I dive into the menu and start looking for organs to upgrade. There's still a fair bit of work to be done to get myself fully mutated at +3/5 all around. My sensory organs, eyes and antennae, still need that final push to max out, and it's definitely worth investing in both. The +3/5 mutations have been stronger and more versatile than those that came before, so I'm sure they'll prove exceptionally useful when applied to my senses. First, let's take a look at my eyes. My eye mutations have been fairly pedestrian up to this point. They've been really useful, don't get me wrong, but they've been very basic. In essence, all I've done is make my compound eyes really, really good. Each individual lens is capable of focusing, giving me incredible depth of vision, and my ability to track motion is excellent. The quality of each lens is also extremely good. Each of my eyes is comparable to 1,000 human eyeballs, giving me incredible vision. But that's it. There's nothing fancy there, no crazy, weird mana-related stuff or spirit vision. I just have super good eyes. Which is great, don't get me wrong, I love it. Recalling back to the early days when I couldn't see the tips of my own antennae when they weren't moving, sends shivers running through my carapace. I swore I'd improve my eyes until it became bearable, and I stuck to that promise. However, it's time to look for some more esoteric and weird options. Largely because I'll be cashing in my eyes for a reset next evolution anyway. I'm tired of having these massive weak points in the middle of my head. My eyeballs are becoming diamond, or something even harder. The amount of trouble I've had in fights due to enemies attacking my eyes is nuts. With future sight and my reflexes, I can get around it, but having to constantly change the angle of my head to dodge is a pain in the thorax. So, firm in the knowledge I can pick something weird without lasting consequences, I dive into the list looking for interesting options. And I find them. Oh boy, do I find them. I've got no idea if these mutations have been here all along or only popped up now at +3/5, but my guess is on the latter. Do I want to see electrical energy? See thoughts. How does that even work? Future sight is here too, which I'm fairly sure it wasn't before. Antennae seem to get that early for some reason. Go, ants. Oh look, I could see intent. Which is different from thoughts. Somehow, I can see the dimensional weave if I want. Not sure what I'd do with it, but sure. I imagine Brilliant has that mutation, or something similar. There's even mutations related specifically to the system, seeing, dungeon lines, whatever those are. This must be what dungeon seers do, or at least part of it. After flicking through the lists for half an hour, the ones that seem most relevant to me are Future Sight, Gravity Sight, Intent and Mana. There are several flavors of each, and the mutations tend to do more than one thing at a time at this level, so even narrowing it down to this amount still leaves me with dozens of choices. For example, Gravity Density Vision allows the eyes to visualize gravitational energy and sense the density of the material they are looking at. Obviously, more gravity means more density, but this goes a step further, since anything I look at isn't necessarily uniformly dense. With this, I could hunt down less dense spots in an opponent's armor, for example. I'm also curious to see how it doubles up with my existing gravity sense on my antennae. The descriptions of intent are even more esoteric than I'm used to with Gandalf. Broad Spectrum Intent Sight allows the eyes to interpret various forms of intent. Yeah, helpful, thanks, Gandalf. What the heck does it mean? It's possible this would be very useful. But how could I tell? Looking at the other variations, I can sort of work it out. There's Sword Intent Sight, Axe Intent Sight, Blade Intent Sight, even Mandible Intent Sight. Clearly, it has something to do with weapon skill activations. I think, after considering my options, I decide to throw caution to the wind and take the Broad Spectrum Intent Sight mutation. If it turns out to be useless, then I'll be getting rid of it. Now, my antennae mutations I need to be much more careful with, since I would rather not reset these again unless I absolutely have to. Twilight Filament, the material my antennae are currently made from, provides incredible bang for the buck, according to Granin. Better materials exist, but are pricey. Again, my mutations in this department have been fairly pedestrian. Sense the future, sense gravity, do both of those things, but better than before. That's pretty much it, and I'm not sure I want to go too far away from that formula, if I'm honest. It's a working combo. The gravity sense has been very helpful in sensing things out and for assisting me wield my gravity mana, and the future sight has been integral at keeping me alive alongside my quick reactions. Not sure what I want to do. I flip through the menu as I continue to munch, hunting for something that stands out. Again, there are many variations of future sight and gravity sight in here at +3.5, and I eventually find one that looks interesting. Prescient Ripple Antennae. Improve the antennae's sense of the future and gravitational waves. Now this could be good. I can already sense gravitational waves from the future. This mutation is covering both of the things I want my antennae to do. I'm a fan. Chapter 1285. More mutating. Just those two mutations are going to cost me 165 apiece. It's so expensive to mutate at this tier, and it's harder than ever to get a decent amount of biomass. Those stomach mutations are a lifesaver, seriously. Moving on, I think it's time to take a look at some other key body parts that could use some powering up. First of all, the vestibule. I've focused entirely on increasing the range so far, all the way to +3.0, and it really pulls in the will, that's for sure. At the +3.5 level, I have no idea what sort of options are going to show up, but I probably don't need any more range. Surely there'll be something interesting. I mean, all the vestibule does is pull in wool, or receive wool, or whatever, and send it into my body, which gives a variety of effects. My remarkable endurance is due to the vestibule, after all. The only thing it doesn't help me regenerate is mana. Improving the range is amazing, but there has to be a limit. I mean, no matter how much I mutate it, it'll never reach the second stratum from the fifth. Diving into the menus once again, I look around for anything that might prove useful. Despite its seemingly limited function, there's still a lot of options for the vestibule, and I take the time to read a selection to try and get a sense for what is possible. There's a few options that take me by surprise, such as one which effectively lets me aim the vestibule. From the description, it seems to direct the opening in order to extend the range even further. Right now, it doesn't matter where a member of the colony is relative to me, so long as they fall inside the area of the vestibule's effect, I'll receive the will they send me. With this mutation, I could point the vestibule up, and only receive will from ants above me. It sort of makes sense, since most of the colony are generally above me in the dungeon, but even if it doubled the range, I still don't think it's worth it. Another option lets me shut the vestibule. I mean, why? If I think of the vestibule as a gateway, this mutation lets me put a door on it. I really don't see the benefit, But hey, it's in the list, so it must have a purpose, probably. There's one that puts some sort of watchdog on the vestibule. It says it defends it in the description, but again, from what? And how? This, along with the Templars showing up in the nave, tells me that there's a lot more to the vestibule than I know. Clearly, it's possible to interfere with the energy in a nefarious way, but I can't imagine how that works. Eventually, I narrow down the options to a few I feel I can live with. The first is an infusing mutation that will improve the regeneration rate provided by the vestibule. Faster fatigue reduction, stamina replenishment, organ refill, it hits a lot of boxes and makes the vestibule better at what it does. It'll also be extremely useful down in the fifth. The more I can regenerate, the longer I can stay in the toxic environment. With the number of ants heading down there, I'll be able to refill my regeneration gland every few minutes. Hey. The other mutation that catches my eye allows the vestibule to pull in wool faster, which is interesting. I didn't realize it had a speed or anything of the sort, but effectively, this will allow me to take in more wool over time from the same number of ants. This will also have the effect of improving my regeneration, but from a different angle. The wool isn't used more efficiently, but there's more of it. This mutation will also help refill the altar faster, which is obviously a win. Come to think of it, these two would be excellent when fused together. If I reach +4-5 and combine them, my regeneration will skyrocket. Planning ahead, how fancy. For now, I choose the accelerated absorption mutation and move on to the nave. So far, my nave mutations have been focused on two things: increasing the number of seats in there, though I'm not completely sure what that does, other than allow me to talk to them directly without any sort of mental link, and condensing the energy that flows through. Looking through the list of mutations now, I can see there's a lot of new options, and a few that I don't necessarily like. There's one that makes those providing wool more susceptible to suggestions by the receiver. No, what the heck? There's another one that drains free wool along with whatever wool is already being provided. Excuse me, what the heck is going on here? Just what is this organ for? It's almost a relief when I find one I like. Empowering Nave, which allows me to direct the flow of wool to those with a place inside the nave. It doesn't help me out, but it will allow me to power up anyone who's inside the nave, which should include the Templars as well, unless I miss my guess. This is a nice way to give something back to the colony, which makes me happy. I took the altar of self so I could turn myself into the defender of my family, but there are plenty of others out there doing work for the colony. This mutation lets me help them out, even just a bit. Lock it in. Finally, I turn my attention to the altar. Again, two different mutations have been my focus so far: capacity and cost reduction on gravity-related abilities. The altar holds more juice, and using it to empower my gravity spells costs less, both great choices, and I'm a big fan. However, at +3-5, we need something a little more show-stopping. I dive into the expanded list of options, hoping to find something that has a bit of punch. The altar is already my trump card, turning me into a pseudo-tier 8 monster with my absurdly beefed-up attacks. What could tip it over the edge? I'm hoping the more powerful mutation options at this tier will provide an answer. And they do. Impregnable, which allows me to directly empower my carapace. Hey, I'm going to be invincible. I confirm those mutations with glee, then immediately collapse as the fiery itch erupts all over my body. Damn it. Chapter 1286. Slime Sage. Things were in a precarious state amongst the tribe. Zaluth was struggling to contain the rage that boiled away inside him, bubbling alongside his internal acid. The ants had vanished once again, enraging all of the Krath who were denied their opportunity to rend the invaders limb from limb. It was clear the monsters were planning something, coming in, testing the waters and then leaving again. They were studying, learning, preparing for the time they could move into the 5th stratum in force. That much was obvious. Zaluth was determined they would rue the day they ever dreamed it would be possible to enter this place. The 5th was reserved for the Krath, and them alone. Living creatures from above or below, be they monster or sapient, had no place in this world of toxic perfection. Zaluth, I see you have survived the breeding season. Zaluth turned an eye stalk to see Ghazi sliding up behind him. He quieted his rage at having one of his kind at his back. Generally, it wasn't a safe place for anyone to have a Krath, fellow tribe member or not, but he wasn't as wary around Ghazi. The other Krath was aging, his slug flesh growing pale as his acid became less virulent. It wouldn't be long until he was fed to the young, possibly only a few more seasons. I managed to keep my stocks down, Zaluth burbled. I'm surprised you managed it. The Kraflath was determined you would father her brood. Zaluth shuddered. You mean she was determined to consume my flesh? Anything could, and frequently did, happen during the courting rituals. A dozen males had been consumed over the last 3 days alone. Soon, the eggs would be laid, and not long after, they would hatch, bringing another swarm of raging Krath for the tribe to feed. This time, Zaluth had escaped the clutches of the Kraflath, but she would surely try again next season, unless he managed to divert her attention to someone else. Ghazi slid up beside him, maintaining a respectful distance so the two didn't unnecessarily aggravate each other. Zaluth had found a neat cranny that overlooked the bloodbeast pits, where concealed from view, he could watch the massive creatures wallow in their filth, chomping on the detritus the tribe saw fit to feed them. What do you think of these, ants? Ghazi said, his voice sounding as if it were summoned from the depths of a swamp. What do you think they are trying to do? Zaluth shuddered with rage. The thought of the invaders was enough to make his slug flesh crawl. I think they are doing what everyone up there hopes to do, find a way through the fifth. They won't be allowed. This is our place, and none are able to tame it. You think the plan put forward by the Kraflath will work, then? Ghazi asked, his stalks leaning toward the other Krath. You think her rude welcome will be effective? There was something in his demeanor that sent warnings blaring through Zaluth's head. This crafty old slug was up to something. It should, he replied carefully. I haven't seen anything to suggest it wouldn't. Goo 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 goo, the other Krath laughed. There's no need to measure your words so carefully. I agree with you, it should work. Then why are you here, asking me about it? Because a smart Krath is always willing to explore the possibilities. If the Kraflath were to fail, then what might happen? Zaluth narrowed the eyes on the end of his stalks. She would lose support amongst the tribe. Maybe even enough to topple her from her position. No doubt that would result in her being consumed. The thought of the potent acid the Kraflath had built inside herself caused Zaluth's mouth to water. If he could refine that for himself. Imagining that liquid fire permeating through his flesh sent a tingle running through his body. However, if she failed to repel the invaders, and if she lost support, who was to say that Zaluth would be the beneficiary? I know what you're thinking, Ghazi smirked. But what if I told you there was a way that all the benefits would fall on you? Zaluth gnashed his teeth. I would be interested, he snarled. I would also be suspicious. Why would an old Krath come here, looking to whisper such things to me? What do you stand to gain, Ghazi? Every Krath was out for themselves. That was the first, second and third rule of the tribes. Ghazi spread his spindly, clawed arms wide. I'm just an old Krath. A few more seasons and I'll be tossed into the pits, down there with the bloodbeasts. All I want is to live a secure life for a while, and a strong Kraflath could do that. You could take your chances in the wilds, Zaluth pointed out. Ghazi pulled a face. My odds of survival out there would be low without the support of a tribe, and you know it. Even if I did manage it, that's not much of a life to live, now is it? Zaluth supposed it wasn't. Eking out a living with the other outcasts in the swamps, or in the depths of the acid lakes, where other Krath didn't bother to go was, a desperate and miserable existence to say the least. Even the tribes, with their endless backstabbing, betrayal and senseless murder, were preferable to that. And exactly what sort of sway do you have with the tribe? Zaluth asked pointedly. An old slug on the verge of being feed isn't the most persuasive voice to have on my side. Goo 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 goo, Ghazi chuckled, you aren't wrong. Listen to me for a moment. I've been around for a while, and I know just what poison to drip in which ears to make these miserable slugs happy. He leaned closer and began to whisper, and Zaluth found himself leaning in as well, his needle-sharp teeth revealed by a widening, savage grin. Chapter 1287, The Massing Masses. After recovering from my mutation session, the gang and I head out to get some practice with our new abilities. We need to get accustomed to things before the invasion starts, and that time is rapidly approaching. Every time we return to the colony, the staging grounds are more and more full. Battalion after battalion of ants, along with the auxiliaries who are mixed in with them. I'm not entirely comfortable with those antennae-wearing priests being included with the troops, but Solent isn't wrong, they provide a boost to all the ant and non-ant troops so long as they're fighting together. She's determined to push for full integration of the non-ant troops into her forces, and she'll drill them until they collapse on the verge of death if that's what it takes. After the first week, the coordination between the groups is already looking good, but is the perfectionist satisfied? Of course not. It's a good thing the humans, Golgari, Karmado and others are plenty motivated, otherwise they wouldn't make it. For our part, we helped clear out the lower tunnels, fighting off the monsters native to the fourth, under the watchful eye of the Legion, of course. They still haven't given up on their mission, apparently, not that I expected they would. It soon becomes a common occurrence for us to turn around and find Legion observers watching from further back in the tunnels. Every time I leave the nest, they try to track my movement, but so far, they haven't actually attempted anything. Just in case, the colony is sending observers as well, though they seem to think I haven't noticed them. Soon enough, I'm going to be just as heavily observed as the Queen. She's active in these tunnels as well, hunting for her own biomass and lending her strength to the family. I can't lie, she's kicking a fair amount of monster backside, but I can't help but worry. That's my mother, damn it. That's all of our mother. Spiritually, if not literally. It wasn't that long ago when every ant in the colony was her child, but now that is most assuredly not the case. The other queens, who evolved specifically for high-quality egg production, rather than a mix of egg-laying and combat like mother, produce far more offspring than she does, and there are so many of them that her grandchildren outnumber her own children hundreds to one, if not thousands at this point. A month passes since the last mission to the fifth as Solent continues to mass her forces and prepare every aspect of the invasion. The highway from the fortress down to the staging ground is constantly filled with ants and others, hauling food, supplies and everything else I can think of as the population at the foundations of the fourth continues to rise. When the time finally comes for me to report to the front, I'm practically bursting with excitement. I've waited way too long for this. The fifth might be the worst place in all of Pangara, but my spirit of adventure is demanding I plunge into the unknown. Also, the hook in my guts that is the call has been growing more relentless lately. As much as I don't want to admit it, the pain of it is not a non-factor when it comes to my eagerness to descend. Tiny, Chrysalis, Nvidia and I emerge into the now vast set of chambers beneath the fortress, and I resist the urge to rub my antennae across my eyes. What I'm seeing is no illusion, and I still can't believe the transformation that's taken place down here. Where once the forward base was a relatively small thing built into the wall, it's now expanded to a booming fortress of its own. There are tens of thousands of non-ant troops housed there now, and the surroundings have been enormously changed as well. There are 1,000 battalions of ants here now, a full million individuals. Possibly the greatest army of monsters in the entirety of Pangara. To house such an absurd number of ants, vast dorm chambers have been constructed, each one stacked on top of the other in close proximity, layered like flaky pastry. There's so much movement it almost breaks my many lenses trying to track it all. Even my antennae are twitching out of control, there's just so much scent and so many intersecting pockets of gravity. Let's head down and see where Solent wants us to be, I tell the others, and we make our way to the main thoroughfare that cuts right through the heart of the entire operation. Of course, the traffic here is insanely intense. The entire complex covers several square kilometers at this point, and the bulk of that area is directly adjacent to this one road. Thankfully, it was built wide enough that having Tiny and myself walking down it at the same time doesn't create a traffic jam. It does cause other problems, though. Damn it, Tiny, do you have to think about punching everything? A ghostly fist comes flying at me. Oi, I saw that. At least he has the grace to look guilty. I was initially excited after mutating my eyes. Being able to see, intent, was an interesting idea, and as soon as it was done, I realized exactly what it did. My antennae can let me see the future, just a smidge, but that is of the movement that is definitely happening. What I can see with my eyes is the intention to move. It has to be more serious than just thinking about it, and it only works for strikes, but it's still pretty nifty. The first intent I saw was ghostly fists flying out from Tiny to smack into walls, rocks, the ground, pretty much everything. Which was fine, except it never stopped. He's thinking about punching stuff all the time. Every ant that walks past us, every single one, ghost fist. He sees an uneven bit of ground. Ghost fist. Nvidia lands on his shoulder. Ghost fist. Anything moves, in any way. Ghost fist. It's absolutely exhausting. I carefully avoid considering what Chrysalis thinks about doing to me. There's no need to open that can of worms. I find Solent in the central command, which is lucky since she's usually out and about sticking her little antennae into everything. Hey there, little general. Are we about ready to get this show on the road? If you mean, invasion into the fifth, then yes. We will begin marshalling in the morning, which should take 4 hours or so, then we will attack. I hope you've been over your instructions. Of course I have. You gave them to me weeks ago. When did you read them? Well, yesterday. Go over them at least another 10 times. We can't afford to have any flaws or delays in our plan of attack. Ah, so you noticed as well. Not me, she denies, coolant was here a few days ago. Makes sense. The mage ants have been keeping track of these sorts of things for a while now. It's only faint, but the mana has just begun to creep up again. The next wave is still a long way out, but it's building. If we don't secure our place in the 5th before it hits, we are going to be so dead. Chapter 1288. The colony invades. Well, let me say this, Solent really does know how to host a get-together. I get the best view, because, as usual, I'm the lucky chap who gets to go down the tunnel first. Which means I'm right in the middle of the staging ground as the full invasion force takes shape around me. As Solent had predicted, it takes hours for everyone to get into place, not just row after row of ants, but the allies going down with them, the woofers, the carvers and all the materials they need to construct the nodes as we go. I've only taken a glimpse at the full extent of the plans Solent has laid out, but even that was enough to give me a headache. As I look out on all of these individuals, I know that Solent has given each and every one of them extremely detailed orders, down to the minute of execution. This whole thing has been planned down to the seconds. Good thing I gave Nvidia and Chrysalis the schedule, otherwise I'd have no chance of keeping up. There's a whole lot more woofers here than I expected. I don't know how the core shapers are managing to pump them out, but whatever they're doing, it's working. The ones who saw experience in the 5th already have evolved a step as well, which puts them at tier 6. Each of them represents a massive investment of resources from the colony, and we absolutely can't afford to let them be caught by the enemy. Of all the things that this invasion plan focuses on, the safety of the woofers is of the utmost importance. When everyone is assembled, it's a fearsome sight. 1,000,000 ants, each in perfect formation along with our allies, united in purpose. Their will flows into me, filling me with their thoughts and expectations. Each of them believes in the absolute victory of the colony, and that thought pours into me over and over again, until our success becomes inevitable in my mind. There's never a time I'm more frightened of the vestibule than when such large numbers of ants are so in sync. Their will forms such a raging torrent it almost washes my own thoughts away. You ready, Solent? Let's do this, I exclaim. My core is thumping with energy, and the energy is pounding throughout my carapace. Despite everything happening around us, Solent is perfectly calm, not even a twitch of her antennae betrays a hint of nervousness. It's not time yet, Senior, she tells me. When will it be time? I demand. She confers with an ant beside her. 1 minute and 19 seconds, she tells me. Damn it, I'm starting to feel a little self-conscious standing here with over 1,000,000 individuals looking at me. Surely we can go. The wait for the final minute is almost unbearable, but I master myself, and the seconds tick by. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Begin the invasion, Solent announces calmly. Woo, I practically dive over the edge and into the tunnel to the 5th, free falling for a dozen meters before I slam my legs into the rock wall, gripping tight to slow my descent. Not much for inspirational speeches, are you? I call back to Solent. Not necessary, she dismisses the thought. Good luck, Senior, I'll see you soon. Like a good general should, Solent is going to make sure everything is going off without a hitch in the staging ground and trust that those of us leading the charge know what we're doing. I mean, she should have confidence, she made everyone drill and practice this 1,000 times. Like the leading drops at the crest of a wave, I throw myself down the tunnel, an impossible pressure following in my wake. The poisonous muck of the 5th grows larger in my vision, but such is the overwhelming power flooding through my vestibule, I don't even care. Barely slowing myself at all, I hurl myself down into the filth, dropping into the 5th like an ant-shaped missile. And of course, the welcoming party is there in full force. The filth in the tunnel has been thickened, to the point it's almost flooded with mucus. As soon as I land, I can barely move as the toxic goop begins to gum up my joints and push tainted mana into my body. I can already feel monsters swimming through the gunk, approaching this apparently vulnerable prey with malicious intent. Is that you, slugs? Well, I appreciate this welcome so much, let me give you a gift. HOOOOOOOWWWWWLLLL. But I'm so generous, one is simply not enough. HOOOOOOOWWWWWLLLL. The woofers and first wave of ants are already descending down the tunnel and I plan to welcome them with a fully clean landing zone. We aren't mucking around down here. The bombs rip through the mucus and detonate a few hundred meters away, the powerful vacuum force dragging the sludge away from me. This stuff is so dense and thick with mana that those 2 weak bombs won't be enough to clear everything at once, but it's going to be a heck of a start. Ghostly lines of assault appear before my eyes, and soon after, my antennae begin to tingle as invisible enemies still attempt to strike me. Good luck. The altar flashes with power within me, and all that energy floods into my carapace. The gravity-compressed diamond pulses once, then explodes with light, blasting back every attack. After the initial burst, it continues to pulse as the will soaks into the diamond. You think you can put your filthy claws on this magnificent beast? Nonsense. In the distance, the 2 gravity bombs peter out, the gravitational mana within having been consumed. But that's totally fine. HOOOOOOOOOWWWWLLLLL. HOOOOOOOWWWWLLLLL. Plenty more where those came from. Gway hey 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 hey. I hope the slugs, if they are out there, are enjoying this opening act. Because the colony is coming soon, and things are going to get messy when they arrive. Chapter 1289. The Chrysalis plans. What is happening? The Chrysalis screamed. The acid and fury bubbled throughout her slug flesh, causing it to sizzle and pop at the edges. The pain only sharpened her rage. The surrounding craft leaned back from her, unwilling to fall prey to her wrath. They too felt the mindless rage of their kind rising. The ants were coming. Finally, they were coming. Each and every one of them needed to suffer in the acid pits for this invasion. And yet, something is consuming the acid mucus, Chrysalis, Ghazi reported. The old Krath had positioned himself wisely, staying as far from the tribe leader as possible while still remaining in the chamber. 2 bulging red eyes turned on their stalks to face him. I can see that, the Chrysalis bellowed. She pointed with one of her spindly limbs. Is that a whirlpool of mucus? It was. From their position close to the ceiling, the Krath were able to look down on where the giant ant had fallen. As part of their welcome strategy, the Krath had diverted several mucus rivers into this tunnel, flooding it with the highly toxic and acidic substance. But now, it was being drained away, sucked into something that they couldn't see. What could possibly consume so much of the dreaded stuff? Already, the level in the tunnel was half of what it had been only a few minutes ago. From the depths of the muck, they caught an occasional burst of the most horrific sound, a scream of hunger so dreadful it put the burning in their own stomachs to shame. Have any of the needle eels poisoned that insect yet? They can't penetrate its shell. Again, Ghazi made the report, but from an entirely different position. As the Chrysalis had raged through the chamber, he'd moved carefully to maintain his distance. How is that possible? The Chrysalis raged. Apparently, it's too hard for the eels to get through, the old Krath replied. How is that possible? She screamed back at him. Those eels were notorious for their ability to puncture just about anything. Every monster, no matter how thick their shell, lived in fear of these eels. Once they pierced through, they would inject their digestive enzymes into the prey, liquefying it from the inside out. A terrible way to die, and a fitting end for the leader of this invasion. Before she could unleash her rage, the leader of the tribe was distracted by a new development at the opening to the 4th stratum. Large pipes were lowered down into the sludge. The moment they made contact, the metal began to hiss and steam, then rattle as they appeared to suck the mucus up and into the tunnel above. The Chrysalis considered what she was seeing for a moment, her eyes sizzling on their stalks as she bottled her anger. They're going to feed the mucus to their pets. She roared. Destroy the pipes immediately. One of the Krath dove down into the river, extending his body to slip through the gunk at incredible speeds. Rapidly, he sliced through the thick sludge, expertly dodging the darting eels as he made his way to the pipes. Mere moments before he reached them, he exploded upwards out of the river and slammed into the rock ceiling of the tunnel. There he remained, pressed against the stone so hard he flattened out to only a few inches thick, wrestling against an invisible force holding him in place. Every watching Krath shuddered in rage to see one of their tribe caught, eyes bulging on the ends of their stalks. Then it appeared, rising up from the sludge, its carapace pulsing with dark purple light, the massive ant made its presence known. It stared straight up at the slug caught on the rock and began to clack its mandibles mockingly. Unable to escape, the Krath did as all his kind would do. He ruptured the acid glands deep inside his body with one claw and laughed mercilessly as his flesh was eaten away. Goo 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 goo, he bellowed, before he was gone. Even then, his liquid remains were left behind, still stuck flat to the roof. The ant clacked one more time before it sank back down into the sludge, seemingly unaffected. When it was completely gone, whatever invisible force had trapped the Krath was released. Before any of them could react or comment, Zaluth burst into the chamber. "It's coming," he roared. "Get clear." A blue glow began to suffuse the entrance to the fourth, and shortly after, a thick syrup of blue mana began to descend into the fifth. Where the blue mana touched the existing atmosphere, it hissed and frothed audibly, as it clashed with the existing mana. As soon as the blue mana appeared, so too did the ants. Only a dozen at first, but another dozen quickly followed, then another. More pipes descended from above, secured by the ants who attached them to the roof of the tunnel, then guided them down into the sludge below. "Do it now," the Krathlath screeched. Several Krath raced away while the rest seethed, audibly sizzling with rage. The blue mana infuriated them on a fundamental level. Its mere existence was incompatible with the slug tribes and it had no place in the fifth. More and more ants poured down the opening as the blue mana expanded to fill the space. Every second that passed, they established more pipes and began siphoning the mana of the fifth upward at faster rates. There was a change in the air, and the Krath turned as one, eyes curving into wicked half-moons as they anticipated what was to come. They could smell it before they could see, a wave of rotten toxin that rushed down the tunnel so fast it blew their eyes back. Further down the tunnel, a tidal wave of hissing red mucus raced towards them. They had intended for the ants to establish more of a presence before they unleashed the wave, but the insects were moving too fast. This ought to slow them down. Zaluth leaned forward, eagerly anticipating the moment the ants would be swept away. However, where he expected to see panic, to see the insect monsters rushing to escape, they only continued to work, never pausing in their tasks. The giant ant appeared once more, rising up to the surface of the muck, clacking its mandibles in a slow, sarcastic rhythm. Suddenly, Zaluth had a bad feeling. He eased further away from the Krathlath. Chapter 1290, Bombs Away. The Krathlath couldn't wait to see the ant melt into goop once the tide of red mucus arrived. Seeded with the incredibly potent red rust moss, it was capable of dissolving even the Krath. The ant wouldn't stand a chance. "Clack all you want," she screamed down at it. "You'll be soup soon enough." And she would feed the muck to the blubbeasts, letting them grow fat on the biomass. The big ant couldn't hear or understand her, but it paid no mind to the Krath who watched from beyond its reach, focusing all its attention toward the oncoming wave. The smaller ants continued to ignore the approaching disaster, rapidly establishing their platform as the blue mana continued to expand further and further. Already, some of the needle eels had perished trying to fling themselves into the evil mana. The moment their elongated bodies touched it, they began to boil away, dissolving to nothing before they had gotten further than a few meters. It was disturbing to see, and it only strengthened the hate boiling within the Krathlath. It was the enemy that was supposed to melt in this place, not the other way around. Her eyes turned back to the big ant as it opened its mandibles wide. She leaned forward, wondering what it hoped to do. Perhaps she would get a proper glimpse of the magic it had been using before. Goo 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 goo. If it wasn't capable of eating away the regular mucus, how could it hope to match the weight of this oncoming wave? She saw the ant brace itself and mocked it in her heart. Then, hool, like a raging demon, the spell erupted from before the massive ant and screamed down the corridor. The Krathlath was forced to use her foot to grip onto the stone platform tighter as the air around her was whipped away, pulled towards the orb of darkness even as it sped away. "What is that?" She tried to roar, but the howling wind snatched the words straight out of her mouth. Down the tunnel, the darkness raced until it met the oncoming wave and vanished inside. Immediately, the horrific sound was cut off, and the Krathlath felt a surge of contempt. That feeling rapidly vanished as chaos exploded down the length of the tunnel. The oncoming wave was immediately obliterated as a sphere of pure nothing expanded to fill the entire width of the tunnel. A ripple raced through the air, then blasted past the watching Krath, followed a second later by a raging wind that put the earlier gale to shame. As one, the Krath flattened themselves down, compressing their slug flesh to its most dense as they pressed their bodies against the stone. The drag of the screeching wind was one thing, but there was another, even more frightening pull that threatened to rip them from their perches and send them hurtling down the tunnel and into the void. Even the giant ant had vanished down into the thick mucus again, no doubt to anchor itself against the forces it had unleashed. On and on it went, the Krathlath going so far as to fully retract her stalks lest they be ripped away by that invisible force. Which meant she was totally blind as the spell rampaged. Even if she couldn't see, she could feel the impact of that dread magic. The stone groaned and shuddered beneath her, jumping and rocking as sections were torn away and consumed. When it finally ended, the gathered slugs slowly expanded themselves to see what had happened. What they saw was ants. Hordes of them. Had they shielded themselves from the spell somehow? With rising anger, the Craftlath watched as more and more of the creatures descended into the fifth stratum, pouring out of the vertical shaft and dropping down. The blue mana had spread much further than before, burning through the remaining mucus and reaching the tunnel floor. Ants swarmed over the exposed ground, already building, shaping, constructing, as other, larger monsters defended the expanding border of the blue mana in rows. Then the giant ant was there, looking up at them, those giant mandibles clacking ominously. It shouldn't have known they were there, shouldn't have been able to sense them at all. Had it heard her scream? Move, Zaluth bellowed, darting away from the ledge, the old slug Ghazi not far behind. The others were a beat slower, and the Craftlath a beat slower still. She nearly paid for that hesitation with her life. The ledge shattered as giant mandibles formed of light sheared straight through the rock, barely missing the end of her body as she sprang away, launching her slug flesh through the air and into the narrow exit. A loud, irritated clack resounded from behind her, and she extended her stalks to see the massive ant looking up at her. From behind the enormous creature, she could see the soft, wobbly monsters that Zaluth had described being lowered down from above, ready to take their place and spread more of their poison through the fifth. With a hiss and a spattering of potent acid across the stone, she retreated down the narrow tunnel, compressing her body to squeeze through. On the other side, she found the rest of the Krath gathered, spitting with rage and burbling to each other in furious tones. It won't be long until their filthy mana fills up the tunnel and spills into this space, Zaluth declared, extending himself upward to be more visible to the others. We can't remain here for long. What? The Craftlath roared. You want to leave? With invaders pushing into the tribe's territory. Our first plan was a failure, he said, then paused just for a moment so everyone could recall just whose plan that had been, so we need a new one. There are too many of the filthy monsters for us to attack them haphazardly. If we retreat to the tribe now, who could say how much progress they will make before we return? The Craftlath demanded. We need to take action now. She could see the other slugs were swayed by both points of view, and that only made her angrier, but also more wary. Zaluth, her guts still ached to consume the acid inside him, more potent than many in the tribe had realized. Was he making a power play? She bared her fangs almost against her will. Should she eat him now? It is the Craftlath who leads the tribe, Ghazi cut in, hawking a gob of mucus onto the floor which bubbled as it ate into the stone. She will decide our next course of action. The words of the old slug brought the attention back to her, but she was too surprised to respond immediately. Ghazi had spoken for her. That was unusual for him. What was his scheme? Her eyes narrowed, she had to think quickly. We will marshal the forces of the tribe for an assault. We will hit them from multiple sides, but we must do everything we can to avoid that large ant. Her flesh still crawled as she thought of the strength of its magic. We unleash our crafted monsters, our bloodbeasts, and support them from the rear. We give these invaders a taste of true Krath might. The others bared their fangs and hissed as they thought of crushing the insects. The Craftlath turned her gaze towards Zaluth. We will need someone to keep a close eye on the enemy as we prepare. Zaluth, stay as close to them as possible and watch. Do not return to the tribe. I will send someone to gather your report. Zaluth spat and nodded his stalks, showing no sign of fear, but she knew he must be trembling down to his foot. Her orders were practically a death sentence. He had to stay close to the ants until she sent someone to speak to him, but that slug would never come. She thought of the giant ant crushing a member of her tribe against the rock. A shame she wouldn't get to feast on that potent acid, but a dead rival was a dead rival.